Hey everybody, we're going through a very old video with a very early nose gear design and development for my C-130 project. So I used a lot of nylon 6 back in the beginning of just machining some parts. Now this nose gear worked, but it didn't work nearly as well as I wanted it to. This is an air system on this one, and I ended up going to a electric jack screw on the nose gear, kind of like I did on the main gear. Excuse me. But as you can see, I used a lot of T6, 6061 T6 aluminum and machined it down, and just used my manual mill and lathe to make a lot of these parts. And actually it worked really good. I mean, I was really pleased with the way the nose gear strut parts worked. They were really light and really strong, and it worked basically the way I wanted it to, but it just took a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of using a manual hand mill to cut and grind parts. One of the things that I knew I was going to have a little bit of problem with was how I steered it, and the steering actually turned out really good on it. But you know, a nose gear has to have some pretty sharp, steering, and it's got to be able to have some suspension, and then you got to be able to hook a servo to it. So I've done it many different ways. Sometimes I just actually have the servo move with the whole nose gear. It's actually mounted on a bracket on the nose gear so that it's turning the top of the strut of the gear. So here you can see it mounted in the airplane. There's two air cylinders behind it. On the top of it, the strut runs up through the very top, and a servo was going to grab this with two springs, almost like a tail gear. But I hate that design because it causes a really sloppy nose gear. And as you can see here, it moved really smooth. I mean, it was nice, and it had the travel. The things I don't like about air is all the other systems that have to be connected to this, which is the fore and aft landing gear doors have to be connected to this mechanism. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way the air system worked, and it used a lot of air because it took two cylinders to move this. And if you've followed my designs for a long time, you know I do a lot of developing on the front end of these systems, and the moment I don't like it, I just start all over. And this did not end up being flight hardware. This was just me experimenting and figuring out. And you see right there, you can see the top, kind of the control arms that help steer it. That would go to a spring, two springs that would go to a servo, and I hated that too. So, you know, this is how you learn, and it turned out really cool though, but this is how you learn. One thing about air that people don't realize, it's really hard to get a constant speed, because as the gear puts more weight on it, of course it takes more air, and then as the gear kind of starts to get underneath it, then it moves really fast. So, the initial move here is pretty slow. I mean, I had the valves mounted on the air system to try to control its speed, but I just did not like the way this worked, and I just thought it'd be problematic. If you followed my builds for a lot of times, a lot of years, I like to keep it super simple and just stupid simple, and this was just way too many parts, too much air. And I know when you see the jack screw system in a future video that I'm reposting, you'll understand. And one reason I'm reposting these videos is for some reason when people are searching my C-130, they can't find it without digging through the 250 videos to get to it. So that's one reason I'm reposting these. And I took videos from every angle. It took about 110 PSI to get 5 cycles, and it was 2 of the larger air tanks. And I did get a person who reached out to me and said they like to use the 1 liter plastic bottles, and look, I've seen those blow up. I've seen them actually blow an airplane fuselage in half. So please use something that's aluminum or aluminum air can or something. Don't start putting the 1 liter plastic bottles in there, because they will blow your airplane up. One thing about this, so you can see the steering right there. One thing about the C-130 is, and I did a video on how you program this, but your nose gear needs to turn off when you're retracting the landing gear, because you don't want the nose gear turning when it's up in the fuselage when it's retracted. So I do that by putting it on my gear switch. So basically I put the nose gear steering as an auxiliary channel. That auxiliary channel is tied to the rudder stick so that when you move the rudder stick, it moves. But that auxiliary channel has a on and off switch that's connected to your landing gear switch. You program it. So when you flip your landing gear switch up, it turns off the steering servo, and basically it tells it to go to 0. It doesn't turn it off. It trims it to 0 travel, because in the 2 settings you can set it on, you have like almost like your travel. You have a full travel like right there, but when you flip the switch to go up, it goes to 0 degrees travel. And if you haven't been following up on a current of you know, what's going on day to day, this airplane got sold. Right before I was getting ready to start actually doing some taxi testing with it, a gentleman reached out to me and said, I really want it. I said, I don't think it's for sale. He told me how much he'd pay me for it, and I said, I'll put it in your car. And he's actually putting turbines in it. He's having a little bit of difficulty right now with where to put the fuel tanks, because the wing is a solid foam hot wire cut wing. There's no place to put fuel in the wings, and there's a lot of plumbing for 4 thirsty turbines. So I hope you enjoy this, everybody. To rock on. Take care. Bye.